Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be processing Comet 12P Pons-Brooks here in PixInsight. Comets are a little bit different than star images or nebula images in that since the comet itself is moving independently from the stars, we're going to want to process the stars separate from the comet. Last year I shot Comet C2022 E3 and made a video on it here and went through that multi-step process. So I'm going to do that again for you here. So we're going to think of it as first, step one, working on the stars, and then step two, working on the comet itself. I'm going to blink through these images here using the PixInsight blink tool so you can see the motion of the comet here. And as you can see here, the stars are staying stationary and the comet is moving here through the 20 frames here. Now these are 120-second exposures here that I shot with my ZWO 2600 MC Duo camera on my TS Optics 90mm refractor telescope that had a reducer on it. So this puts my focal length at about 430 millimeters. Now, in the images, besides the airplanes and satellites passing through, I believe these are actually Starlink satellites, you can see here I have a decent amount of cloud cover. I didn't have the best seeing conditions, but I think once I work through this processing here, we should be able to pull out a really nice image, because the nice thing is with comets, you typically don't need a ton of integration time like you would some different nebula and galaxies. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll exit out of the blink tool here. And this image right here is the integration of those images. I only ended up doing about 17 of them. I used the weighted batch pre-processing feature, WBPP, to have this image here. So let me zoom out a little bit and we'll get started. Now the first thing I'm going to do is run the image solver script so that I can have this plate solved, because I'll need it to properly color calibrate it with SPCC. So it's simple as selecting image solver, and then it's already got my date, time, right hand ascension, everything on here in the image, the focal length and pixel size for my camera. So I'm just going to hit OK. Now that that is done, I can run SPCC, spectrophotometric color calibration. What I'm going to do is have this background neutralization here checked. So I'm going to select region of interest, come up here to this little box up here, and make a new preview window. So I'm going to find an area with no stars, nebulosity, anything like that, or comet tail, so to speak, and just select a small box here. You don't need a very large sample size. I'll then hit from preview and select that preview window, hit OK. I can leave everything else as is, and this will color correct the photo for me. All right, now that that's done here, you can see it's got these white balance factors numbers here. I'm going to write those down. We're going to save those for later because I'll need those for properly color calibrating the comet only image once we separate it from the stars. So I can just exit out of this and zoom back out here. I can get rid of my preview. I'll no longer need it. And then I can run another stretch on this image. And you can see here for the 36 or so odd minutes here, you can see that it actually turned out pretty good. Even with the clouds and everything, that's not a bad image. I've got a little bit of detail here on the ion tail of the comet, but again, as we zoom in here, you can see that independent movement of the comet because it's stretched it out here because it's moved independently from the stars. But we're going to continue and go ahead and just edit this as we can pretend that the comet's not here and just edit this as a star image as we continue. So the next process that I'm going to use is the gradient correction tool. This is a relatively new process here in PixInsight. I haven't used it a ton, but I've been leaving, so far on a couple images that I've worked with it here, I've been leaving the gradient correction, just everything kind of on the default settings. So I'll just drag it over here. And as you can see, it's gotten rid of that gradient very nicely. It's gotten rid of all of it, within just a few seconds here. So you can see the difference before and after. The next process I'm going to use is the Blur Exterminator tool. This is from RC Astro. It's a really great plugin that uses AI to kind of deconvolute and sharpen your stars. So I've just kind of reset it here to the default settings, and I'm just going to drag and drop it over. And as we can see here, if I run the before and after, how it's cleaned up these stars a little bit. So the next thing I'm going to do is, now that I've kind of got this kind of cleaned up and everything, I'm going to stretch this for the stars. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep the Comet in here. It doesn't really matter for right now. So I'm going to go to Process. And here's a process that I've been using a little bit more recently. I'm going to go to the Arc Sign Stretch. And I'm going to run an initial stretch with the arc sign stretch and then use the histogram transformation. This stretching method kind of saves a little bit more of the color detail in the stars. So I find that if you just use this just a little bit first and then the histogram transformation, it brings out a lot of really nice color in your stars. So I'll open up my preview window. We'll get rid of this stretch here so that we have a true representation of our image. And then we're just going to stretch this just a little bit here. And I'm also going to make sure that I have Protect Highlights and use RGB Working Space selected. Whoops. Since I didn't do that in the first place, I'll redo that real quick. Stretch it out just a little bit. And now that I've stretched it one time like that, I'm going to go to the histogram transformation tool, make sure that I have this selected, and then now stretch it as I normally would. All right, now that I have that just stretched out, again, just for my stars, I can use the Star Exterminator tool to remove the comet from the image. It'll just extract the stars out. So we'll just drag and drop that on there. So there, it's removed the comet from the image. I can just minimize this and put this up here. I've got my stars only image here. You can see the comet has been removed. While I have this here, I'm going to stretch this out just a little bit more. And then I'm going to rename this as stars. So now that I'm done with the stars only image, I can just minimize that for now. The next thing we're going to do is now process the comet itself. And what you would do for this is open up Star Exterminator again and go to Process Batch. And we don't need star files, so we can just exit out of that. We want to make sure that Output Starless Files too, and you can select your own designation path, is selected. And what this will do, in fact, if I open it up here, you can see that I had already made a starless path here, and so that it has all my starless images. It takes all of those images that I integrated and then makes and just runs it in a batch process feature. And you want to make sure that they are your registered images, obviously, so that they're already everything's kind of aligns right here at the end. So I'm not going to run that process again, but that's how you would get your batch process starless images. So I can exit out of here. I can then go to the Comet Align tool. So if I go to Process, All Processes, Comet Align tool, Comet Alignment tool, and add those starless images in here. Now, the only reason I'm not using all 20 of my images or all 17 is because really out of those, these 7 here were the best. But all you need to do for the Comet Alignment tool is make sure you have this first one selected, hit Show First Image. We'll throw a quick stretch on that here so it shows us the comet. We will zoom in here, and with our cursor, just hit right on the center of the comet there. And then we will next go down to the last one, hit Show Last Image, and do the same thing. And then you'll zoom in and hit the center of the comet. And before you hit the apply, you're going to want to select an output directory. I named mine Comet Aligned and then just put all my files in there. And what it'll do is create these starless _CA for Comet Aligned photos. I'm not going to run it here because I've already done this, so I'll just exit out of it. And with those _CA images, you can then go to Image Integration and bring those images into Image Integration and then integrate them together. You're just going to make sure your combination is set to average, and then I leave everything else the same, so we'll hit Apply. All right, now that that's done, you will open this here, and here's our comet image only. We're going to get rid of this green background by using ABE, the automatic background extractor. We're going to make sure our function degree is set to 1 and that this is set down to subtraction. And we can also have the discard background model because it's just going to be this green blob here. It's selected, so we'll drag and drop that over. And if we run an auto stretch on it, you can see here's our comet here, just our comet only. You can see there's a little bit more detail and structure in that ion tail. And if I zoom in here, you can also see the comet isn't kind of blurred and elongated. It's actually, well, normal. So what we're going to do now is color correct this image using the color calibration tool here. So I'm going to minimize this, actually get rid of it. I'll go to Process, All Processes, Color Calibration. And those numbers that we used earlier, that we wrote down earlier when we used SPCC, we're going to enter them in here. So I'll enter in those real quick. And then I'll drag and drop it. And that is since color calibrated the image. All right, the next step, I'm going to use the clone stamp tool to kind of clean up some of these residual stars out of the image. I'm going to leave this halo here because of the clouds that I had, that light cloud cover. It kind of bloomed that star out, and if I remove that, it'll look a little funky a little later. So, but I will remove these little remnants of stars here. So I just open up the clone stamp tool. It's very similar to like you would using in Photoshop. And since I'm using a Mac, I'm going to hit the Command key to create my reference and just kind of come over and paint each one of these little blurred out little blips here that kind of went through. All right, once we're done with that, we just want to make sure that you hit the green check mark. That's going to execute this action here. Now I'm ready to actually stretch this image, so I'm going to use just the histogram transformation tool here. Make sure the correct window is selected here. Open up my preview and stretch out this image for the comet. Now that I'm done with that, I can change the name here to Comet. Hit OK. And now I'm ready to use Pixel Math to combine my comet and star images together. So I'll go to Pixel Math, and I will use this formula max parentheses stars comma comet. Make sure create new image is selected, and then hit apply. And there we go. It's created our combined comet star image here. Nice little bit of detail on the ion tail of the comet here, and more importantly, it's not elongated. It looks nice here. I'm going to fix the background a little bit by doing just one more histogram transformation. So I'm going to make sure the right window is selected, and we will just hit the preview. And I'm also going to add some more noise reduction to this image too, because I only reduce the noise in the comet portion. I need to reduce the noise in the stars. So run noise exterminator again. You can see that's cleaned it up quite a bit. And before I move to Photoshop, I'm going to run a fast rotation, because I'm going to rotate this image out to like it was at least naturally here. Before I move over to Photoshop, I will do a quick saturation boost here. So I'll use the curves transformation and bring up just a little bit more saturation. All right, now I'm going to save this image as a TIFF file here. So we'll just save as, let's call it Pons-Brooks. Save it as a TIFF file, hit save, and save it as a 16-bit TIFF so that we can now edit this in Photoshop. All right, I'm here in Photoshop now, and I just like to finish a lot of my edits off here. The first thing I do is a color balance, so I can kind of finish off correcting this the background a little bit. It's just I find it easier in Photoshop. Let me zoom in on this image just a little bit more. There we go. And I'm gonna just lightly color correct my background here. You can see before and after. Now that that's done, you can kind of see our little bit of before and after here. I'm going to go to, make sure the layer's selected, go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And one of the things I'm going to do is zoom in here. There's a little bit of color noise, kind of blotchiness. So I'm going to just put a little bit of color noise reduction in there. Kind of gets rid of that little noise. Add a little bit of sharpening, not much. You don't want to put a bunch of halos in the stars. And then I'm also going to go to effects and bump up my clarity just a little bit to kind of bring out the comet. Actually, in fact, what I'm going to do is create a mask. Whoops. And with a brush here, and then use that to add a little bit of clarity in just to the comet itself here. See how that brings a little bit more structure and detail to that ion tail of the comet. There we go. And I've had just a little bit of a crop here to this image to kind of finish it off. All right, so there is my final image. It's not going to win any awards, but I think for having a little over 30 minutes of integration time with some pretty cloudy conditions, I'm happy the way that this turned out. We can see there's some detail here in the ion tail. The stars look nice. They have some good color to them. Overall, I'm happy with the image. I would have loved to have had some more chances to shoot this again. But unfortunately, as the comet's moving, it is moving closer to the sun. We're in my area, we're having not the best weather for the next week. It's going to be cloudy and rainy, so I really probably won't get a chance to really shoot this comet again. So I'm glad I got at least to do something with it. So if you've enjoyed this processing video, please leave a like and comment. I am going to be shooting the solar eclipse next month. I'm going down to Hillsboro, Texas, to a buddy's house, and he has some property right there in the center of the path of totality. So I should get a, knock on wood, get a pretty good view of the eclipse. So I do plan on shooting that, and I will probably do a processing video on that as well. I'm also currently working on the Leo triplet. I got about 5.5 hours right now of data, but I want to get some more data before I make another video on that. So anyway, guys, thanks again for watching. Clear skies, and I'll see you in the next video.